Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Music isn't too loud or anything, is it, at the moment? Well, it just shut off. Just want to make sure it's rather balanced. Hey, Order of Mystery, how you doing? Welcome, welcome to the stream. Just want to make sure the mic is coming through, video's coming through. Is the music good volume? I want to make sure it's not overpowering before we get into this. Oop, turn the camera the wrong way. Yep. Music is subtle? Okay, good. That's where it needs to be. You know what I mean? Where I want it to be. Hope everyone had an amazing weekend. Welcome back to the stream. My name is Mac. I am the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is the amazing map making tool you see in front of you. It allows you to build maps in a snap. You can generate environments or rooms, buildings with multi-level structures and roofing in a matter of moments, or you can roll up your sleeves and build entire maps by hand with intricate details that are custom to your every whim. Dungeon Alchemist is available on Steam. We offer a free demo so you can try it before you buy it, kind of test drive it and make sure it runs on your system before you invest too much time, effort, or money into it. Otherwise, today's stream is called Mapmaker Monday. Mapmaker Monday's theme is a focus on a live map build. So this map here is a massive ancient cemetery, and it's 85 by 82 is the size of it. Just want to make sure that all the stream feeds are live, by the way, before we get too much into this. I've got TikTok, I've got everything. Okay, we're good. We got Steam, we've got everything. Cool. Fantastic. But I started on this corner here, made a little entryway and a pond, and I've done pretty much everything on this map by hand, and I made most of it perpendicular to the grid instead of on or parallel to the grid, which has made it kind of difficult, but also fun. Hey, Anani, welcome back. Yuna, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. So this here is it's a massive cathedral with a 3-story bell tower, and I built that bell tower by hand before multi-level is available. You can see this is a legacy map, which doesn't support the new multi-level, but you could still build stuff by hand in it if you want. Lovely little garden surrounding and wrapping the entire cathedral complex, and then some exit points going into... I see these as kind of like the graves of those that have served for this cathedral, whether they were like a priest or a priestess or, like a paladin or a cleric over many, many, many hundreds of years. This cemetery and cathedral have been here, so it's not like it's just a daily occurrence that people die. Anyway, this whole thing has become quite expansive, and we're getting closer and closer to the end of the build each time we stream. What we're working on right now is over here, this area, which we have kind of aptly and appropriately named the Sardine Can. I think it was Chim who named it that, and it just kind of stuck because the graves here are packed in very tight, very little room, or not too much, like they didn't have like a mausoleum or a large plot. It's just like a generic plot. Over here is more kind of the sardine can feel, but fancier graves. I feel like I'm going to fill out this whole area with these kind of somewhat fancier graves, which notice every setup is slightly different, whether the headstone is different or the base is different. That one, so we have one third. But it's kind of fun to place these because every time you place this grave, it comes up with a different design. So you can just keep placing over and over again. It's ideal for this scenario where we're spinning up lots of graves. So during the streams are AMA format. If you have any questions related to the stream, you're wondering what you can do with Dungeon Alchemist, you have questions about your particular builds or exports that you might be struggling with, maybe you have a question about our development's future and everything going on there, feel free to let us know in the chat, and I will do my best to respond in kind. Please keep in mind we are multi-streaming right now, which means we're live on multiple platforms. At the moment, we're live on Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Steam. So all of those are simultaneously getting a stream feed, and I'm monitoring all those chats the best I can. If you have a question and you drop it in chat, if I don't answer right away, that's probably why. I'm looking at many of the different chats and trying to catch up. So if any of y'all have any questions, concerns, feedback for the build, or maybe about the development of Dungeon Alchemist, please let me know and we will try to address them during the stream. Otherwise, I will be focusing on this area of the build and continuing out this whole kind of stretch of graves, if you will. Aren't really. And these aren't lined up to that. What's going on here? Hey, Baddest, thank you for the like. Much appreciated. How you doing today? Pretty much the whole dev team's on holiday right now. There's a few of the artists around and myself, but honestly, man, it's, you know, I would wait for them to address it. If you have a map, you bug out because it got way intense, it's going to be a bit before they can look at it. Doing good, just on a lunch break. Nice. What kind of lunch you having today, Baddest? But yeah, unfortunately, they are, well, not unfortunately, most of the dev team is getting a well-deserved break. They worked really hard in the time leading up to the launch of Fun with Objects, and then the couple weeks after, offering patches and other support. So I think they definitely deserve a well-deserved some time off, you know, away from the computer, away from a screen, so they can recharge, rejuvenate, and then regroup. Honestly, I don't exactly know. It's not like I work with them in Belgium. You know, I work 100% remotely here in the States. So some instant noodles, nothing fancy. Gotcha. I don't know. Instant noodles are always yummy. What flavor are you eating, my friend? And did you bring enough to share with the stream? I kid. Honestly, though, I think, hey, John, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Jorpy. The graveyard is quite massive, Jorpy, and I only work on it about a half hour a week. So as you can imagine, it's going to take some time to finish it. But it just kind of keeps going and going and going and go. It's a really extensive build. Yeah, I just got a whole new subset of assets, which has been helping a lot. Because I was putting in graves by hand like this because we only had like 3 varieties for like pauper graves, and now we have a whole ton of new grave options, so I'm really excited. Been pushing through it pretty quick. I think the map is coming along nicely, all things considered. I'd say I probably only have about 20 to maybe 35 hours of work time on this tops, and it's all been by hand, so that's not bad. There's been some incidents too where I had to like roll back my work or things bugged out and I had to undo it. All things considered though, I think the build's coming along swimmingly. But yeah, if I worked on it like say 3 times a week, it'd probably be done by now. The problem is I'm only working on it every Monday for about an hour tops. So I think it kind of is slow going in the progress. I think from now on, I'm probably not going to do maps quite as large in our future projects for Mapmaker Monday. Oh, Jorpy, that sounds delicious. Mango sticky rice. Dang, I'm jealous. Oh no, my chat bot crashed. Let me reload it. To be honest with you, my average map build is time is between 30 and 40 hours for most of them because I do a lot of by hand work and my maps are usually massive builds. I don't really do simple builds. Nothing against those who, you know, use Dungeon Alchemist as it's intended for really quick builds. I just prefer the by hand, you know, feel and aesthetic. Little bit out of this one here, room-wise. Like, I understand the appeal of Dungeon Alchemist as a quick map maker for generating environments or, like, you know, filling in homes and stuff. I'll usually generate the environment and then I'll generate a house that's like a blank room. So what I do is I'll generate it with like this, just walls and floors. And then I'll put the windows and doors where I like and the objects where I like, change the floor manually if I don't like the floor, you know, like the floor that it generated. Ultimately, though, I like the personal option to build everything by hand. That's just a personal preference. I enjoy that, and it's very cathartic for me to build maps. Honestly, Anani, I don't know. I really don't know. And yeah, I probably shouldn't be sharing too much of their personal info that way. What's it called? A bastion, you mean? A Doom? I actually just built a bastion when we were getting ready for this update to kind of test it out. Hey, see you later, Battis. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Here, I'll show you the bastion I made. Let me save this like twice to make sure all my work today is already saved. So, sometimes, Jorpy, though, the thing is I'm building this for our community, not for me necessarily. So the point is this map may be used in hundreds of different campaigns for different aspects. Some may be a quick one-off thing, some may be a whole intrigue thing, some they may visit it several times, who knows? But I ultimately, you know, a lot of my maps are never used in my personal campaigns. They're maybe meant for the community more than anything. So I kind of went all out on it for that reason. So this is a bastion I built following the 2024 bastion like mechanics and rules, like to the T. They are very particular about space and sizes and like overall formatting. So rooms start at a certain size unless you pay to have them upgraded, which also takes in-game time. So you kind of start with base sizes and you upgrade from there. I took it quite literally and just tried to make everything fit within that space without embellishing or taking too much extra space, but I put it all in one building. I've seen people do like a compound with several buildings all in kind of one area. That's totally fine too. But if you look at this here, we have multiple floors. So downstairs is our armory and our barracks. I did red versus blue as our theme down here. Then they have a little, this was just like a hallway transitioning to different stairs or ladders going into different parts of the bastion. But I put a little like tavern and an entertainment space for them. And then if you follow any of these stairs, they all go different places. So this one here goes to the back patio kind of driveway, covered, you know, driveway. Where this is essentially, you know, you can see how it's covered here. But when it's down here, this is our storehouse. We have two storehouses in one big room together. And then over here is our pantry. So it seems like a reasonable place for a cart to load up and take gear or, you know, goods to and from. So, Order of Mystery, legacy maps are very much still accessible and buildable. Just the only feature you can't access in them is roofing and multi-level. Now, you can do multi-level by hand in old maps. Hey, Dystress, thank you so much for the heart. Much appreciated. You can do essentially multi-level by hand by disabling object collisions in the object panel, and then you can use the walls found under here in structural freestanding walls. There's a copy of every wall from this menu in there. That's the way that most people made multi-level prior to the update. And there's hundreds of thousands of examples of multi-level maps on the workshop that were available prior to that. That being said, it is a little bit more time consuming. If it were me, I'd just export your existing map, right, as an image. Doesn't matter how you do it as long as you have the floors, like the first floor. And then you could take it into a new map that's the same size. So you open a new map, and then you would import a trace overlay where you put your old map in as a trace image. As long as the new map and the old map are the same size, square, width by height, you should then be able to overlay the old map on the new map rather easily and, you know, quickly trace out your rooms and the majority of your floor plan really quickly. This definitely can save a tremendous amount of time because Dungeon Alchemist maps are one for each other. If you have, you know, the existing map still and can reference it for its dimensions. So it isn't a complete loss. I understand it's a bummer, you got to rebuild. But I will say this, so much of Dungeon Alchemist was fundamentally changed in this update. A lot of core mechanics, essentially foundational mechanics and aspects of the code, paired with hundreds of thousands of objects were depreciated, essentially removed and changed and upgraded to work with multi-level or be more compatible with it. And as a result of which, that caused, for the first time in our entire development and early access, for us to have an issue where backwards compatibility wasn't fully available. And unfortunately, that is the nature of early access sometimes. Once in a while, there's just not going to be a full backwards compatibility. And we're sorry that's the case here. but your maps are still accessible. You can still open them. You can still edit them. You can share them on the Steam Workshop. You can download legacy maps from the Steam Workshop. The only thing you can't do with them is, under the room tool, take advantage of the multi-level and roofing mechanics. I do apologize, though, that you have to kind of start over there, but at least you got a jump start because you got the trace. Sorry, was there a question about ships? Hey, Highland Lass, how have you been? Any plans for underwater terrain? So just so you know, you can do like sunken buildings and flooded cities right now. You just generate a structure in the water and sink it down before you generate it. So to a degree, you can do underwater stuff as long as you make stuff deep enough to compensate. But that being said, we do have updates planned to flesh out our water-based support, water at different levels, things like waterfalls, you know, currents, maybe things like waves, water effects, maybe weather. But also we have 2 updates planned to supplement that with things, you know, to essentially make it much more functional in Dungeon Alchemist than it currently is. One of them is called Water Worlds and the other one is called High Seas. I don't know exactly when they'll be released in our update schedule because we don't really share the next update. It isn't privy to me until like we essentially finish the one we're working on. So Fun with Objects Part 2 is what we're working on now. I don't know what we're going to release after that. But I do know we have 4 major updates after the Fun with Objects Part 2 launches. So there is, in no particular order, Tricks and Traps, Water Worlds, High Seas, and Instant Dungeon. Or Instant Dungeon, I mean. So Instant Dungeons essentially would allow you to have an environment. Hey, Rose, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Where you generate an entire map and all the rooms and everything to fill it in a single click. So instead of just the environment or a room at a time, it would be entire maps with everything in them. I'm gonna try and see if we can generate like an island with a deep sea around it so we can have some sunken stuff. Hey, Rage Lightning, how you doing? Good, thank you. Scotland has a major storm hitting today. The Northern Islands get a tad wilder later. Wind is ramping up now. Just handful. Already been a handful of hurricane gusts south and high exposed areas. Very unusual. Jeez, I'm sorry to hear that. Stay safe, okay? Votes are possible now, and they will be much more enhanced in the future. So, Gustav, essentially, right now, there are a few boat options, both in our stock assets. So if you type boat, you can grab, you know, say this one, for instance. It's a rowboat, but you can resize it up to be much larger, and then you could fill it with objects to make it a boat. A lot of people do that in our community. Or you can download boats from the workshop, like this one here. So there's dozens of ships and like nice looking ships on the workshop that you can download and just use immediately. And how you do that is you click Steam Workshop up here and you click Browse Assets. Then you type ship. A complete map like a steamboat. I'm not sure what that means, Gustav. But as you see here, we've got airships, different ships of different kinds, and then they could be added into a map where you have seas and whatnot. Or if you want, you can just download a map that has ships on it. So this one here is a city with a seaside with a couple boats. There are ships at sea like this is just a boat on the sea. There's people who have made ships that are entire floors separate in one build. Like this one's one of my favorite. It has multiple decks on the same map, so each floor of the ship. What I'm going to do is use this map to show a sunken city too. So this is that big sail or that boat I showed you earlier, and they just decorated it and put different decks on each one, and this is each of the levels. So this is like top deck and the upper deck where the steering wheel is, and then the captain's quarters and the rowboat, and then a lower deck, and then below that. Okay, that's like, let's put a building down here. That's above, right? Just gonna sink it down into the water and then generate it. So we have like a sunken, room, or technically it could be, like an Atlantean thing. This map's probably not the best one to do it. Complete map like a steamboat. I'm assuming you want the map of a steamboat to be like a whole set of the map on one thing. So kind of like this, but as a steamboat. Okay, let's get back to me cemetery. But yeah, let me see if we have some of the shipbuilding stuff in my stuff. I don't know if I have it anymore. Let me see. Lost it. Oh, here they are. I don't know where it is. Man, it's been a minute since I was digging through them. Could have sworn I had like a maybe this. Nope. Turn. So I had some teasers from, before Fun with Objects launched, and I cleaned out a lot of that stuff, like the old clips and stuff I had after the launch. I'm sorry, I don't know if I have it anymore. There was like a clip that showed like a ship in the background, and I'm just not seeing it anymore. Let me see if I can search it and find it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it anymore. I'm sorry, I must have deleted it. Get back to placing graves and paths and fences. So, oh man, my chat isn't moving. I just noticed. 1 second, let me fix this. Let's see here. So right now you can technically build sci-fi maps using what's been shared on the Steam Workshop or using the asset importer. So we've given you tools to import 3D models of all shapes and sizes and styles and varieties and file types. STL, FBX, and GLTF/GLB files are all supported. And to that end, community members have uploaded hundreds of thousands of sci-fi, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic assets, and many have made maps as well to that end. There are hundreds of examples on the Steam Workshop browser. If you just type in sci-fi, for instance, you can start downloading these maps, and they're a great resource because when you download this map, it'll also trigger the download for all of the sci-fi assets in the map. So you can download all the map and the assets, take a look at it, build your own map with the assets you just acquired, which will be mixed into the object menu, but also in this download objects menu. So because the Steam Workshop integration, there are now hundreds of thousands of sci-fi maps, sci-fi assets, post-apoc. There's like, I've seen Fallout maps, I've seen Walking Dead maps, I've seen all sorts of things. The thing is there's no support for instant generation or rooms or anything like that. You could generate a base room and then make sure the walls and floors fit the aesthetic and then fill it in with objects by hand. Does that make sense? So in the future, we do plan to offer optional expansions for sci-fi, things like that. But that's after we leave early access and have delivered on all of our current Kickstarter and development promises. So we have a ways to go before we start offering optional expansions. And when those expansions do launch, essentially think of it like this. It would be like, I'm just guessing the price point, but like $20 to $30 for an optional expansion that would essentially plug into the existing Dungeon Alchemist architecture. And it gives you access to hundreds of, say, like dozens of new room types, hundreds of thousands of new objects, new doors, windows, walls, floors, ceilings, maybe even tokens, and environments. All of these things will work within the existing Dungeon Alchemist architecture, which allows you to generate maps really quick using those styles. Well, so when they designed the room curve tool, they actually designed it to be done with one click for everything. So I'm assuming you just are struggling with the concept of making certain shapes. Is that what you're having an issue with? Because I don't think there'll ever be a spline tool or a draw tool for shaping rooms, mainly because room generation functions on the grid and requires some sort of logic to work. So there probably won't be a way to just shape it however you want. That being said, you can get quite intricate with the room shaping tool as long as you understand how it works. So the first thing I need to point out, I always have the grid on when I'm using the room shaping tool. That is absolutely critical. You draw out your floor plan. It's pretty easy to do, rectangle or weird shapes because you can add to the room. You can remove from the room with control and delete different portions or huge sections all at once if you want and separate them. You have undo, redo as tools to help you along the way. Now, let's say you wanted to make a perfect circle. No worries, that's what I'm here for. Will, honestly, these streams are like AMA format, which means ask me anything related to Dungeon Alchemist and I will show you how to do it. So let's say you want to make a circle. First thing, when making a circle, circles are perfectly round, right? The room it's derived from needs to be a perfect square that is perfectly divisible to make a perfect circle. And by that, I mean, you can't have a square that's 5 by 5 because you can't split a square in half, right? To have an equally divisible amount of squares. So equal amount of squares on each side will allow you to get circles. Let's start with that. So 4 by 4, for instance, or 6 by 6, right? That'll allow you to get a perfect circle. You've got these little dots on the edge of each corner. I'm going to pull from that dot inward towards the center until the line curves and meets this line, which is 3 squares in, equally divisible, right? 1, 2, 3. Oh, went a little far. That's the third pop. So 1, 2, 3, right? As many squares as there are inward. Let's do it again. That one meets up automatically because it had nowhere further to go. This will be very easy from here on out. It now makes a perfect circle. So this can be done all the way up to 20 by 20, right? Additionally, if you want to make a different kind of cut, you can do convex bites or concave bites. If you pull outward, it does these nice little bites. If you pull inward, it does the bumps. And if you pull to the side and in, it makes diagonal cuts. Now, keep in mind, these shapes still have to follow like a 1-1-2-2-3-3 ratio. So it's a little tricky sometimes to get custom exactly to your need shapes. But it is possible to do quite a bit with this tool. And it's very customizable. That said, it does take a little bit of practice. The more you practice, like you said, you're the more you practice this, the easier it gets. So for instance, I'm now turning that square into another square. Or if you have an uneven amount of squares, right? So let's do 5 by 6, right? This helps you make like ovoid shapes or like kind of bean looking shapes, right? A little weird. Or you can even have just a single like off-put area there for a hallway. You also can rotate the floor plan and lower or raise the floor plan before you generate it. Shaping the floor plan, deleting squares, adding squares, rotating, etc. All of that is stuff you can do before you generate it. After you generate, the only way to go back is to do the undo function and hope that that building's still in your undo queue. What was the one we figured out yesterday? It was like 9 by 9 allows you to do a semi-perfect like octagon or something. So with a 9 by 9, if you pull in 3 squares on each side, 3, 3, 3. According to D&D math, this is the same length as this, so it works. This is an octagon, actually. Hey, Devins, first off, thank you for the roses. Appreciate that. So, how do you recommend using the new roofs with the foreground layer in Roll20? So I'll say this, the foreground layer feature released about 2 weeks before we launched our latest update. And the latest update has been split into 2 parts. Fun with Objects Part 1 was the first part that launched on the 10th of July, included multi-level roofing, a bunch of new features, etc. Fun with Objects Part 2 will include a bunch of new quality of life improvements, features, and adjustments to multi-level and roofing, including improvements towards exports. One of the things I desperately begged them to add in this update when they launched it and pushed for it for the last while. Basically, every update, they ask the team for personal requests and what they think the community might like. So I put a list together of things I thought the community would like, and then also a few that I personally wanted. And we've had people wanting transparent level exports forever, where you can export, say, the canopy of trees, or under the bridge top, or a roofing top, and then everything around it is transparent. So all you see is the top layer of what, is there. So what that does is when you set it as a foreground layer in any of the tools that offer foreground layering, whether it's Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, or Roll20, you could then set the roof as one level and the map underneath it as another. And what that does is when your players go into that room from an outside, perspective, it peels back the roof and then they're inside. It's a nice immersive thing. To do that currently, if you want to make that work, there's several ways to approach it, but it all needs to be done by hand. After you've exported and you've got all the levels, you can then either take the roof layer into Photoshop and edit everything out around it with a quick lasso to grab the roofing, and then just delete everything outside of it, make it transparent and save it as a PNG. That would be the quickest method in my opinion. There are other methods. You can use, essentially take your map that you have and save as the map. So you have a split version of the map, and you have the master map, which is your build with all of your stuff. And then the save as version, you would then convert that map into a different biome. So if you convert it from, say, forest to green screen, all of the buildings will remain, but the terrain outside will be a green screen environment. So you still have the master map with all of your previous build, but this new one, the green screen one, you essentially export the roofing layer and then throw that into a photo editor and remove the green. If you don't want to do that, i.e. maybe you have a lot of other stuff outside like tree canopy or arches or signs, you could alternatively take an object from this menu, the abstract menu, and we have these green kind of customizable panes. If you have collisions off, you can raise it up, resize it, and essentially drag it under the roof canopy. But the problem with this is it'll get shadow cast on it. So let's say something like this. You lowered it just below the roof. Problem is, you see these shadows have uneven lighting, and it will cause issues on export where you have to kind of edit this by hand. It causes way more work, I think, than just editing out the environment by hand in the first go or changing the environment. So we have a couple tools to allow you to work around it, Devin, but it does take some extra work. You need to know how to do some photo editing and color removal, which, I'll be honest, it's only about 2-3 clicks in most photo editors. There's even tools online that do color editing, like color removal for free in a couple of clicks. So realistically, it's just a matter of saving as the map and re-exporting it with the green screen environment. So what I would do is, like, if you have a new map that's multi-level, let me save this first. Actually, hope I did. Just gonna open my bastion. Nemka, if you have the skills, it's easy to key off, but if you have no idea how to photo edit, it sounds like a foreign language, right? So to some, it's very easy, but to others, it's not so much. But we have given you the tools to do it. So this is a multi-level bastion I built for my players, right? Or for my crew. Well, they're not my players. They're actually, I'm part of the team too. I'm a player, but I made this because, you know, I figured the group would want to have their input towards the build. Anyway, let's say I saved as this map, right? Saved it as a new map. In fact, I'll just do that right now. My desktop, bastion, green screen, right? Save. So I've now got the green screen map, which is the one I want to work on. And then I go outside and I go to, and this may not even work for this build because I have this terrain out here, but we're going to try and make it work, okay? So we're going to go to here, and then we're going to change this from forest to green screen. So this will delete anything that's normal terrain and then just leave pretty much anything else. It actually left a few trees, surprisingly, I think because they were low enough. But at this point, most buildings, you wouldn't have like an exterior walkway like I do that's actually considered a room. So you can essentially export, delete the trees manually and then go to the export menu and then just export the current layer, which is the top layer. So essentially when you're done, it would just be the roofing and that's it. You put that into Photoshop, delete the green and save it as a PNG. You're good to go for your foreground layers. Devin, does that make sense at all? So right now you can export any individual layer you want, right? You just have to be on that layer and then set the export to only current layer. So that will export essentially the top layer, which is the highest point if you're at the highest point. So you can pick and choose, but I think our next update will allow transparent exports around. So essentially anything that's environment will be transparent. There will either be a transparent biome or a transparent export option. I'm pushing for this both for those that want to do foreground layering, but also those that want to create animated tiles or just tiles of objects and buildings that you can stamp into, into your VTT. And I don't know if any of you have used tiles in your virtual tabletop, but they're essentially a great way to add like an animated object, like say the drill that you can, get in Dungeon Alchemist, or a windmill, or, anything like that. So it can be added on your map, but then moved around later. I'm a monster. Anyway. Devin, I hope that made sense. Oh, fruit on pizza is actually really good. Anani, I will Okay, cool. Thank you, Devin. I actually, I'm a weirdo when it comes to that stuff. But I have done like strawberry on pizza is pretty good, and kiwi on pizza is pretty good. I also love pineapple on pizza. Y'all can hate me if you want. So luckily, at least, Devin, there are some tools to get you to that foreground layer until we offer a foreground layer export that's more in line with what they do offer from those tools, right? Because essentially you want everything around the roofing to be transparent, or everything that's like below a certain level of a tree to be transparent. So you'd maybe only want the tree canopy and like the roofing, and that's it. Everything else down here would be transparent. Oh, thank you, Artsy. I appreciate it. I made this, my group just got a bastion in our game. We've been playing for like 8 months, right? And the DM we play with, he's actually a professional DM. And we're running a 5e campaign, but I begged him, I said, hey, do you think we could try out, if the group was interested, could we try out bastions so you could learn about them? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I talked to the group, they're like, hell yeah, we want a base. So basically, when we finished out our like a quest chain where we like our patron that was paying us and giving us missions and loot, we kind of finished out the quest chain for them, and they rewarded us with a bastion, a custom bastion. So I, being the map maker and community manager that knows a lot of things about Dungeon Alchemist, I was like, perfect time to make one because we just got multi-level. Honestly, Artsy, I don't mind drawing my own maps for a quick little thing, like showing something, but it is so nice to have a beautiful visual representation nowadays, because as we're starting to learn more and more about individuals and how they learn and process information, in the past, a hand-drawn map was probably just fine, but the thing is like I'm learning that if you have a visual map with like animations and detail to it, it can help people who maybe have aphantasia and don't have a mind's eye, who want to play D&D and be more involved, right? So that's one thing, but also I do feel this appeals to a more modern generation that was raised in like, video games and stuff like that. So it helps them feel more, just involved in the environment itself. Do you play D&D or Pathfinder or anything like that, Artsy? I'm assuming since you found us in the D&D channel or section, you probably play D&D. So anyway, sorry to like put you on the spot. If you love what you see, I want you to know more about it so you understand it. And I'm here to actually answer your questions. I'm part of the team. I'm the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. And this is our official channel. So it's like a great place to learn about this. Len? Okay, I'll call you Len from now on. My bad. So yeah, there are Hellscape type maps. We actually have an entire biome dedicated to it if you want to like generate a map. So you can go in, and we have one called the Skeletal Plains, which is essentially a series of hellscapes, things that look, like something like a demon realm or hell, or possibly even, alien in like design, because there's like tryptophobic, gross like stuff, and mountains of skulls and other things. Let's generate one so you can see. We'll do one with a lava flow. Lava. Varmint, yes. Our maps export directly for the 3 major virtual tabletops and a series of others. But the maps include lighting, line of sight data for walls, windows, doors, light information itself, like how big of a light halo it makes. And our maps are offered in multi-level with roofing now. You can generate environments in moments using our Oh, the environment animated right now. But here is like a skeletal plane for you there, Len, with, and this is just kind of a simple hellscape, right? Let me make some adjustments so it feels even more cool. So we could add like a color filter, maybe give it a red or purple hue. We can change the terrain to be not skulls. Instead, we could be like these weird kind of alien, I don't even know. They look gross. That's all I say. They're gross. But this is just a couple of different the paints that we offer for this environment. I'm just going to show you a few of them. They're like fleshy stuff. Piles of bones, like there was a massive battle. Charred bones. And these are, you know, I've heard that some people use these for like dark sun environments and other stuff. Oh, here you can have rivers and pools of blood. You saw the lava a moment ago. Here's just like fetid water. Honestly, Order of Mystery, that's my favorite way to hunt down assets, is to download a map with them in it at first, because you could browse assets, it's great, and there's over 10,000 community shared assets, but like if they weren't labeled as sci-fi when the person uploaded them, maybe they just labeled it what it is instead of putting sci-fi in the description or the name, then you won't find it. But there are lots of sci-fi assets that don't have that in them because the person who uploaded them just named it wall or, you know, pillar or something instead of sci-fi pillar, right? So as you start looking and downloading assets, adding them to your collection, it's easy to just download a map and get everything it has instead of going one at a time hunting them down. That being said, I will give a warning. Assets on the workshop, consider them like mods for a game. Every time you download another asset, you're modifying Dungeon Alchemist with that asset. Some assets are very well optimized, decimated, very small in size, and very, 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 you know, good for the Dungeon Alchemist architecture. Like this one's 1.37 megabytes. While there are some assets, this one's 45 megabytes. That's bigger than most Dungeon Alchemist maps. The average DA map is like 25 megabytes or less now with a multi-level design. So just keep that in mind when you download an asset. Be careful what you download. Make sure the size is, you know, reasonable, because some of them may cause DA to run slowly or poorly because of the poor optimization of the asset in the first place. Does that make sense? So as you download more and more assets, your performance in Dungeon Alchemist may get at least some decrease. Like, you may notice a decrease in performance over time the more assets you download. Here, let me open a map I made that was like a hellscape kind of thing. I actually made a map to show that it's possible to build like a map that's the inside of a large creature, like a, you know, a gargantuan behemoth, you know, Leviathan type creature. We kind of gave a, like what we say is optimal 25 megabytes or less, but I don't think there is a way for us to cap it with the way Steam Workshop is designed. Like, we recommend 25 megabytes or less, but Steam kind of has no limit. I don't think, to a degree. It may, I think it's like 1.5 gigabytes or something. So this here was that skeletal plains biome, and I made a large cave system that's actually the inside of like a massive creature. So here you have like its esophagus, and then the stomach with like acid, and there's bones and ulcers, and then you go down here into the intestines, and then, you know, yeah. I'll ask the devs about adding a cap, but I also think, you know, giving you the freedom to do whatever you want, just with the, you know, with the knowledge that, hey, you can upload assets any size you want as long as Steam allows it, but keep in mind it may affect your performance, so you can essentially have whatever you want, is nice. But at the same time, yeah, you just should be wary when you're downloading assets. Keep an eye on their size. And I wouldn't go ham, just download every asset in the workshop. we've seen time and time again, because you have to load those assets with DA when it loads up. So if you have like 2,000, 3,000 assets from the workshop, it can decrease performance exponentially. So just download assets as you need them, build your map, and then unsubscribe from them. That way you can, and keep in mind, if you open the map later, it'll tell you to download those assets. So it's not like you lose access to them. It'll just prompt you to download them again later. I did answer Barment's question some time ago, actually. But our exports support print, so you can print your maps out either on your own printer or take the digital file to like a print shop to print it as a big, poster size or whatever. We also have a partnership with Kraken War Games, which allows you to export your maps to them, and then they print it on a essentially kind of like those new big mouse pads, and it is a massive scratch-proof, water-resistant map that you can use over and over again, especially if it's a place you go to a lot. It's very nice. You can export maps as digital files, as either an image or a looped video, and you can use those on a TV tabletop or projector tabletop. And then lastly, we offer support for exports for a number of virtual tabletops. So your maps can be exported for Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Above VTT, and pretty much any virtual tabletop that supports universal VTT files, or just a JPEG or a MP4 or WebM also can work. Sort by size would be a nice thing on the workshop. I'll make that suggestion to the devs. Oh no, where's my pen? Find a pen. Oh. Who was watching the stream the other day when I got the Charlie horse? My leg has been hurting so much since then. I've been trying to stretch it out. It's just so sore. Well, no, the Charlie horse stopped, right? But it hurt ever since then. My leg has been in pain from it, because that's like the first Charlie horse I've had in forever, and it was like a 10-minute long one, so it hurt really. It's just the back of my leg is really sore. So, Len, Dungeon Alchemist, I'll be honest with you, we use AI, but I want to point out, first off, not all AIs are created equally. And we took a very ethical approach into designing and developing and releasing our AI to the public. So let me kind of educate you on that. First off, Dungeon Alchemist is nothing like a generative AI like ChatGPT or Midjourney. So it's not like that at all. It's a last gen AI, which it's more of a procedural based AI, okay? And it has a very specific purpose, which is map making and encounter building, right? So it doesn't do, it's not a jack of all trades, master of none. It's a master of one, right? Secondly, because it's a procedural AI, at no point, does it use, say, public art or anything like that to train it. We train it in-house using our own data sets we've developed. All of the assets in Dungeon Alchemist that are inside of the object menu, the room menu, anything that uses our AI to generate an environment or a room was all created in-house and developed in-house by our own art team and our own development team. So at no point were any public maps, art, data, anything like that used to train and develop our AI. So not only was it done entirely in-house, we feel it's probably one of the better ways to use AI. People are saying there is good ways to use AI, right? And we think, allowing you to save time to generate your maps in moments, or fill in a room, and then you can kind of just add some personal flair to it, so you can save time for what matters, which is your campaigns, playing with your players, enjoying that time together instead of putting tons of time into session prep. we feel it's an ethical use of AI. So our personal AI is definitely ethical. The AI we developed in-house, 100% ethical from top to bottom, and we're very proud of that. That being said, as far as generative AI, you know, I have mixed feels about it personally. I understand that what it's doing is bad to the environment. And I also do not like where generative AI is being unethical, stealing art or, you know, copyrighted material in its training. So I definitely do not like that. That being said, like as personal, you know, thing, I do often see use cases for it for, you know, a personal use. Like I have dyslexia, right? And when I'm writing things out on paper or in a Word document, you know, I often, you know, spell check will get so much, but it kind of misses dyslexic things. And so I will run it through ChatGPT just to get another opinion on if the grammar is all right. That being said, that's more just a personal thing. I like to check my own grammar, check, you know, other things with that. So I kind of use it as a personal assistant sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. But I definitely don't really use it insanely for like art or anything like that. I use it mostly for like very tedium, bored, like work that I just like, it's so much easier to have a robot do it, like a spell check type thing, right? That's the thing though, we don't use AI in any of our art, and anytime we use art in Dungeon Alchemist, it's made by our team of artists. So you're basically talking to a team that doesn't use generative AI in its development. I think, you know, at times maybe our developers may run the, you know, take their code and be like, why isn't this code working to a certain AI that specializes in code? And may ask them, but they're not doing AI slop by any means. It might just be, hey, this is where the issue is. No, Len, I never said you were. I never said you were. I definitely want to make sure there was nothing like that being construed. I do think though, if generative AI is used ethically, or like it's a personal home AI that you made yourself and you plug the data sets in, it can be a very useful tool. That being said, I do think generative AI can be very awful. At both ends of the spectrum. It is like, you know, ruining the environment, guzzling up tons of water. I saw a video on TikTok yesterday and it made me laugh super hard because it was so real. Like, the person asked AI a question. It's like, what should I have for dinner tonight? Something that's like, you probably could figure that out yourself. And then the person was acting out they were the AI and they were just chugging a bottle of water as quick as they could. And then when they finished, they were like, oh, the water was running down their face because they couldn't drink it quick enough. And then they're like, you should have pizza with glue on top. I think some people use it for the wrong things. And I do think AI needs regulation and or needs to be kind of reined in a bit, because most people who are like making laws about it don't understand computers or what this can be used for. And really all they're looking at is like dollar signs. Honestly, I do think if AI is pushed out too early in some spaces, it'll definitely like as their replacement for their employees and stuff, it's going to backfire brilliantly. And we're already starting to see it. Like some company had their code wiped out by an AI during a code lock. There's been people who were able to kind of get like support AIs to promise them deals on cars and stuff like that. There's definitely going to be some blowback. And I think some companies will just lose customers altogether from it, you know? To regulate AI better, more like to not regulate it at all for the next 10 years. But let's not get into that. Yes, it was funny and sad at the same time. I agree. The video made me laugh out loud because that's the truth of it. It's like millions of questions are being asked to AIs every day that literally are things that you could probably Google search or just do yourself, figure it out. And it's definitely probably not the best use of AI. I definitely understand, you know, a lot of people's concerns about AI and where it's going. I'm gonna line these up and I'm looking at it right. Time to get funky. Funky. Buddy, clap your hands. Oh no, honestly, I don't mind. That's the whole point of the story. Like, let's have discussions. AI is a big part of our lives now, and we probably like. I do think part of is learning and understanding what AI is as a whole, right? Is good to know because there's lots of different AI. AI is part of your life everywhere you go. It runs the traffic lights you drive through, and it dictates your banking and the stock market. It's everywhere, right? So I think understanding it and how to use it as a tool is a good thing, but also, you know, understanding how we could move forward with it ethically is also a good thing, right? It's a good discussion to have, Len. I am not at all worried about it or concerned. I'm not mad. Like, let's talk about it. Not a bad thing, especially because it is part of Dungeon Alchemist as a whole. AI is in the description. It says AI, you know, right here, AI settings. We do use AI, but it's definitely not what most people perceive as AI nowadays. I do hope that with time, you know, acceptance of AI, but also ethical AI is more embraced, right? These streams, though, we'll get on tangents all the time, like all the time, because we're making maps for 2 hours at a time sometimes. So we do need to talk about things like people's campaigns and people's insights on, you know, different topics. It's fun because essentially we're just a gaggle of GMs and like-minded map makers who, well, you know, essentially a bunch of nerds at heart and love to discuss this stuff. So don't worry about it. Jai, I agree 100%. Like, I think AI in the medical field is brilliant. You know why? Because I feel like the current nurses and doctors are spread thin due to the way medicine has been designed as like a corporate, like money thing in the US. So like there's usually one nurse to like 20 patients. If AI was involved, it would help a lot in making sure these patients are actively being, you know, attended to, if anything, by an AI nurse or doctor that constantly monitors them for symptoms that may be bad, you know? Oh my gosh, I do not like the Google AI summaries at all. Google is useless now. It's completely useless to me. Google used to be such a good resource, and now it's like you can't find anything, and you could search the same thing twice. Try this. I have searched the same thing twice in a row and gotten 2 different answers from the AI summary. The first time it said yes, and the second time it said no. I've actually been using DuckDuckGo as like my primary browser because I was just trying out a different one because I was just kind of fed up with Google as of late. It's crazy because it used to be like a really good tool. Growing up, like the term Google it was like, hey, you could find anything with Google. That's why it was such a thing. And now it's like it's so 50-50, you flip a coin. I wish I could just disable Google summaries and just go back to the old search from like 2 years ago. I have essentially I add the tag -AI to every one of my searches now when I'm like searching for art or anything, so you don't get all that AI slop art in it. Y'all make me laugh. I appreciate y'all so much. Yeah, a lot of our daily life is monetized down to like the last inch. And I live in Vegas, right? And there's a lot of discussion about how Vegas is dying, right? Like there's a bunch of locals going down to the strip and they're like, this is insanely dead. You know, because the strip has like no one on it right now. On like a Friday night. And so like I'm sure the casinos are concerned, but you know, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Locals, it costs them like $200 to go to a casino just to hang out for the night because parking and like all these exorbitant fees. It's like you might as well get a room. But yeah, you can. All the maps you make in Dungeon Alchemist are yours to keep and yours to use for resale, whether it's commission, Patreon, you're making an adventure module, whatever. Article 4.1 of our terms and conditions, which was just shared in the chat, also outlines some more information. Basically, the big things of concern is make sure that you're making your own maps, i.e. you can't like recreate a Fandelver map and then resell it, right? Or take someone else's map off the workshop, make a couple changes, and then repackage it as your own, okay? So you're gonna want to avoid maps and assets from the workshop because they're not our assets, right? And they're other people's creations. Some of the assets uploaded to the workshop are Creative Commons assets, which means they cannot be used for resale. Others are personal assets being shared, which they're usually indicative of you can't resell them. So I would avoid these two entirely if you're making maps for resale in any capacity. Only use the stock, you know, rooms, the stock assets, stock doors, windows, walls, floors, etc. Tokens, I would probably avoid the Hero Forge tokens, but all of the stock ones and Bite the Bullet, they're licensed to be used within Dungeon Alchemist outside of like for resale. So you should be good there with those. Now, moving on. You can sell your maps to your heart's content, and you do not need to worry about any extra licensing or fees until you surpass $100,000 in annual gross revenue from your maps. So basically, if you create a module, do a Kickstarter, that Kickstarter gets $300,000 in revenue, you're going to have to double back to us and get a commercial license for your maps. Because you are clearly using Dungeon Alchemist more than just an average creator. Yeah, Retro Noggin, quite a few do. Because there are a subset of community members who make brilliant maps by hand. And also there's plenty of DMs out there that just still don't have time to make every map they want for their campaign. Often they'll, sublet or, essentially have someone else make that. What is the term? Subcontract the map so it gets made, in their down, while they are doing something else. And there's plenty in our community who make maps and sell them. And some are starting to actually get to a point where they're getting some recognition and stuff we're kind of a new company, you know, it's not like Dungeon Draft that's been around like 8-10 years. We've only been on the scene for about 3 years, so our community members are starting to grow with us as well. I'm all for it. I love seeing our community map makers grow and their Patreons grow and their commissions grow. Makes me happy. There was one that I was looking for. Oh, this one's pretty. Let's check it out. Hey, Cryoman, how you doing? Baco, what up? So this is a map someone made in the Fade plane. You can generate maps in the Fade plane if you want. Set your map size, so I'll just do like a 40 by 40. Select the Fade plane, and then you could set other parameters. Is the map flat? Does it have mountains, hills, whatever? The spiral ones are pretty neat. Vegetation, does it have no vegetation? Fey forest, crystal forest, mushroom forest, or dense vegetation? Let's add a river to it, and then we'll generate it. I love to hear that, Still Dragon, honestly, because I feel like old school DMs are kind of mixed. They're kind of set in their ways, you know, and they like their either, you know, hand maps that they like graph paper or just drawing out a sketch or something, or they do the theater of the mind thing very heavily. I love a campaign that leans on theater of the mind, but also has maps like this, so you can kind of do both. So this is a Feywild biome here. We can change the lighting to make it feel more, you know, that effect. And we can even change the water to make it feel more otherworldly. I like making the water gold. Really makes the Fey plane pop. That's just personal preference, though. So when it comes to combat and encounters, especially where distance is important, I love having a map. I prefer a map. I do not like doing combat encounters in Theater of the Mind because it gets really confusing really quick. Wait, how far away am I from that guy? Okay, I can hit them. Okay. I hate asking that question every second in combat. When you have a VTT or a map in front of you, you can usually do the math and figure it all out. When it comes to like maybe explaining some like crazy event or something intricate, or like a new area for the first time, Theater of the Mind is a great way to really get the noggin working. You kind of paint a picture, and then you could segue that into a map you already have of the, you know, a portion of the environment or something. Still Dragon, by the way, thank you for that sub, and Le Monde Informatique, thank you as well. Well, great minds think alike, right? Order of Mystery. Here, let's generate another new map really quick. We'll get rid of the river. We'll go up to 60 by 60. We'll change it from a spiral to mountains. And then we'll change it to a mushroom. Here's the thing. I think as a modern GM, you should keep your options open, right? The game is changing. Like, you can keep playing the way you're used to, and that's fine, right? But I do think, especially if you're trying to, like, let's say you're a father trying to get your kids into it, or you have, you know, the next generation of gamers, and you're trying to get them into tabletop gaming particularly, having a map is such a valuable tool for that generation. My son went from not caring about D&D to it being the thing he loves most inside of a year, because we were able to cater to his style of gameplay. By having a beautiful map for him to look at, he's able to see the environment much better because he has aphantasia. He can't imagine it as well. And so this is a great tool for especially kids who love video games and stuff. Having a map like that feels more natural. It just feels like what they're used to. Echo Freak Show, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Right now, Barment, I'm just generating the map on the fly for you. If you want, we can look up some and see what they look like. That others have made. Like a little cabin in the Feywild. Like Dungeons and Dragons is a game of imagination, right? Pathfinder and stuff, but having a map is like a reference. It's so nice, and it really helps paint the picture for your players. It's a beautiful little Feywild environment. Sky Flames, I could totally see that. I could see. And everybody kind of has a different style, and not just that, a learning method. Some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people need to be guided and like shown what to do, like very hands-on, instructions, right? And so when you're a game master, a dungeon master, it's good to know your players and how they perceive the environments and story you're weaving for them. Having a map, even if you prefer theater of the mind as a backup or an optional thing to help them visualize it better, is always great, because not everyone's going to see it in their mind the same way you do. Of course. Barment, by the way, we have a free demo on Steam, so you can download it and kind of try before you buy, and see how it runs on your system before you invest too much time, or money into it. I will say this though, there is a known bug from our most recent update that hasn't been patched yet. It will be patched soon, but our lead dev is on vacation. We launched the update, he did 2 weeks of patches, and then this bug was discovered after he left for vacation. But the bug is fixable for anyone. I'm just letting everyone know, actually. If you load a map and you're noticing it's running slow, like your frames have dipped, if you hit escape, go to settings and just close the map. Or not close the map, close settings. Fixes the issue. You can also just go to file settings, same thing, and then just exit out. Don't know what exactly is going on. They haven't been able to investigate it fully because I discovered it after he was out of the office. But making you aware of it, so if you're running into an issue, that's why. Really easy. Honestly, they did like 2 weeks of hot fixes and patches, and I think we just didn't notice this bug right away. So it was hard to notice because with the new update, they said there would be some performance issues, especially if you have a multi-level map, because it's like if you have 3 levels, that's like 3 maps. So I assumed that was the reason it was running slow, but then I noticed that when I did certain things, it changed. And then I realized what it was and was able to share it with the devs. The light sources are definitely something to do with it, because watch this. When you go to I'll show you with my Bastion. This is how I know. The Bastion just runs like really slow, like 7 frames when I load in. But I do know this will be fixed soon. Our devs are like wizards, or more like warlocks. I'm pretty sure that our lead developer has a pact with some sort of electronic demon or coding demon. Anyway, no, look at my frames. They're crawling. Last map, it was great. Look at the map here. Watch what happens. It'll change. It changes when I hit this. Watch. You'll see it kind of bloom and get brighter. Escape. All the map just got way brighter all of a sudden. And then I hit escape out of that, and it's running 36 frames all of a sudden. Much better. Like, what the heck? Anyway, so for now, every time you load a map, whether it's the first time or the 100th time, just go to settings, exit out of settings. You'll notice a boost in performance immediately. Hoping that helps you all out, and I'm really sorry we're dealing with this bug right now, and this is the solution. But at least it's something. Right? You saw it. I'm not crazy, right? It just jumped. Anyway, are there plans to add custom textures? I don't know if we'll add custom terrain, but we do have a new tool that'll be in the next portion of the Fun with Objects update called the decal tool. It was going to be in part 1, but they couldn't get it fine-tuned enough. It'll be a new menu on this side, and it essentially allows you to add stamps, images on top of existing environments. So for instance, one example was you could put patches of snow on like the green environment, so it looks like it might have been melted and there's only a few patches left. You could do blood, you can do symbols, you can do leaves, you can do cracks in the floor, you can do all sorts of things with it. The decal tool also has the option to import custom images, PNGs, to make your own decals. So when that launches, you'll be able to put them on the ground, on objects, walls, floors, etc., roof, all sorts of stuff. Hey, that's the dev life. Sounds like a memory leak. It kind of does, huh? Honestly, though, I don't think it's a memory leak because what it feels like is Dungeon Alchemist, is defaulting to a higher graphics setting than what I have it configured to. It's like defaulting to high or even ultra, and then when I go into the settings menu, it's like, oh, you have it running on medium, I forgot, and then it reconfigures it, and it's good. So that's kind of what it feels like it's doing, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's defaulting to a higher resolution or setting from like a default setting configuration that was missed or something in the update, is what I think is happening. But I could be wrong. I'm not necessarily a dev. Ray tracing turned on, right? Probably. Goodness. Here, I found a decal tool demo we can check out. I did have this video still. So what it's great for is just, yeah, it's very reproducible and it's fixable with just a quick opening the menu and closing it. That's why it's so confusing, right, Jacob? But our lead dev is out of town. I'm sure when he gets home, he'll fix it in like a second. So it's not a big deal. At least for now, because it's easy to fix on your own, like with the quick thing. And I don't think our devs noticed it in testing because they have like god tier computers. Like Wim has this crazy, insanely powerful Mac. And I think that Carl has like a custom built PC that like makes mine look like nothing in comparison. And my stream PC is pretty powerful, right? So I think they just didn't notice this issue off the bat because their computers could handle it. But others, the average user, or those with less than optimal PCs will notice this more than they will. Why not use the Badlands biome instead, Gustavo? The decal tool isn't out yet. It was meant to be in Fun with Objects Part 1, but they couldn't fine-tune it enough and get rid of all the bugs, so they were going to work on it more and put it in Fun with Objects Part 2. I know they have dev tools to run it at different, like it's, what do they call it? Like it's an environment or something that it runs at that setting, right? Emulating, right? Isn't that like something that, or a modal or something? I don't know exactly what the term is in development. But notice here in the decal tool, you have like snow, moss, dirt, footprints, leaves. There's so much diversity included in the base decals. Plus, you can import your own. BM, what's that mean, Atlam? Sorry. Assume I'm 5 and don't know every... A virtual machine, gotcha. See, y'all know. You know, another thing that there is definitely room for optimization in DA. Like one of our devs was improving optimization and load times and stuff. But one thing I do know is like currently Dungeon Alchemist only uses 1 core of your CPU. So I feel like with time, there's going to be like, we're going to unlock like super map making at some point if the devs decide to allow hyper-threading or multi-core use. So like, yeah, right, Jacob? It's like it'll be a big jump when we allow that, if we allow it. Though I do know that our devs are interested in improving the terrain tool quite a bit, both like the terrain options. Like, I know it's limited right now. You only have so many paints for each terrain biome, right? You go to a different biome, you have different paints. So the desert, you think desert, okay, but if you go to Badlands, someone was asking about darker sand, right? The Badlands is going to be really close to like dark sand. We're using... Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Got like a sharp pain behind my eye. Hold on one sec. Sorry, we're using Unity. But if you go in this biome, who was asking about dark sand? Like this here is great to kind of feel like a more, you know, a darker sand environment. But I do know that like our terrain paints, we're using like a Unity module or plugin that's not our own, because they did that to quickly speed up the terrain paint development early on so we could push early access out the door. Our devs have stated they want to make one from scratch soon, which I'm hoping will include like every terrain paint in every biome, and maybe even the option to import your own. It would be great at some point if we had that, but I don't know if it's going to happen for sure. Here's a more darker, like a red sand. I grew up in southern Utah, so that sand right there and this look is like what I'm very much used to where I grew up. Yeah, I've got some water here. I don't know what, I think it's just, I have photosensitivity and the lights are really bright. And once in a while, they'll get me in the eye and I'm like, ah! Hey, Len, thank you for that follow. Much appreciated. So instead of using the desert biome, use the Badlands biome, Gustavo, and that should help you out. Yeah, that's kind of the same. I'm odd HD, so I like run into little things like that. Oh my gosh, if I'm in a game party with people and like 8 people are talking at once, I can't even think. I'm like, ah, what is going on? I have to like step back. So green screens work effectively when there's light. That's the thing, Mondu, is light and green screen chroma key, they work hand in hand. I don't know if you've looked at like sound studios and green screen studios, they have a lot of light. The more light, the better, because you want less shadows. And if you have shadows, the green screen isn't as effective. So essentially, I'm kind of forced to have light. Jacob, I feel you, man. I really wanted to DM, but it was just something that was too much of a struggle for me. I enjoy playing. DMing is just too much for me to focus on and be effective. So I used to wear like gunner optics on when I streamed to help block out the light and help with the eye strain, but I just felt like it was kind of a hokey thing. It wasn't really doing anything. And then for a while I wore sunglasses, but if you wear sunglasses all day, you get a headache, you know, on the ridge of your nose, and this hurts when your headphones pushing on it. So I'd rather just deal with the sensory issues than wear something that gives me a headache for hours and hours later. See, that's the thing, Mondu. I disagree respectfully, because with the green screen, you have as much of Dungeon Alchemist available as possible, right? As much of it as possibly visible. And this is something that the devs and I agree on, that we want more of Dungeon Alchemist visual available and less graphics and on-screen stuff. That's why we go for a more simplistic style without borders or tons of pop-ups when there's follows. And blue light, I've seen those. Are they pretty good, Rev? Do you need a prescription for those? So honestly, Mondu, I do, yeah, like a border would work, but then it'd block out this whole corner here. None of DA around me would be visible. And it's like, it's a good chunk of percentage of DA that you can't see. So I even though it's like an unuseful corner, I think visually it looks more pleasing. Oh, you found us way back in the day when we were doing our Kickstarter, Jacob? Man, Rev, can you link me that in DM, dude? I'd like to check it out if you pull the link from your order history. Send it to me. Get back to the graveyard. I mean, there's a lot of map making tools out there, man, and they're all kind of like good in their own regard. I honestly, like, if you think about it, like as DMs, right? It's a good idea as a DM or a GM to, have as many options available to you for your production, for your game, right? If you're playing in a virtual tabletop or in person or anything, sometimes in person they'll have TV tabletops and smoke and lighting and environment sound effects, and it looks like they're in a tavern for feel and aesthetic. Like, that's really cool. And when you play online, you can add effects and like animated maps and all these different things, right? So I don't know. I think when we're a DM or a GM, you can be effective in a lot of different ways. Like, you could be a great storyteller and a world weaver. You're great at making maps, or you have the best sound effects and, lighting effects and snacks for your players. You're an amazing storyteller. All of these little things are like tools in a tool belt, right? And the more you use a tool, the more practice you get with it, the better you get, right? And in my mind, a carpenter can't just like make cabinets or, make a shelf with just a hammer. They need a saw, they need chisels, they need sanding tools, they need, all sorts of different things to effectively make a good shelf or a cabinet, right? It's just something as simple as a shelf still requires several tools for an expert carpenter, right? So if you as a DM, maybe you want several different map making tools to supplement your storytelling style. Maybe one that's better for world maps and one that's better for environment or local, maps, stuff like that, right? So at the end of the day, if you have several map making tools or, different drawing tools and paints for making minis and a TV tabletop, those are just tools in your belt to be the most effective storyteller and game master you can be. And it doesn't necessarily always equate to more tools equal better. I think it's a combination of practice, experience, and the tools in your tool belt. But at the end of the day, no DM can, you still are going to need a few basic tools to play a game, right? Tailspire is a great tool. Like, honestly, I think I don't even see them as competition. And I don't say that as a rude way. I see them as complementary. They're a great, awesome tool, and they had their own niche. Full 3D design with a virtual tabletop built in for gameplay. That's amazing. It's awesome. It's a great tool. And I think it has its place, and certain tables love it. Not every table will like a full 3D game. You know what I mean? I still think a carpenter is going to need a saw if you just give them a few logs and a nail and a hammer. They're still going to need some level, a few different tools to make a table. But yeah, I do agree with that assessment there, Mondu. Hey, Lewis. Yeah, that's a great point. Like some people, like, you know, they like Dungeon Alchemist, but it doesn't do everything they need, so they use a different tool. I don't know if Dungeon Alchemist will be an all-in-one tool where there's a built-in VTT, mainly because that's something we never promised in our Kickstarter, and that would be some major feature creep, right? There would be some development tax tied into that, I'd imagine. But what I could see happening is if once we leave early access and have delivered on all our Kickstarter promises, and we're kind of at the point where we're offering, you know, essentially patches and hot fixes and minor improvements, but also maybe, you know, optional expansions and stuff in DA. At that point, we would maybe develop a standalone virtual tabletop that would supplement Dungeon Alchemist perfectly. You know, it'd be a perfect blend, like peanut butter and chocolate. You know what I mean? Essentially, where it's designed for Dungeon Alchemist, it would probably get the most out of Dungeon Alchemist maps and environments. That's something that's been kind of talked about in the background a little bit, but there's really no time frame on this. And I do think the devs would want to avoid building a VTT into Dungeon Alchemist because they want it to be a map maker first, and really only a map maker and an immersion tool. Whereas you take the maps and then put them into, say, Dungeon Alchemist VTT, it'd probably be the best of both worlds, right? Gustavo, if you could do me a favor, if you're not already, if you jump into our Discord. Hey, Dystress, welcome back. Thank you for that heart earlier. I didn't get to say thank you. I didn't notice it right away, so I'm sorry. Appreciate you. Gustavo, what I was going to tell you, though, is if you could hop into our Discord and spin up a support thread in our support forum. That way we can track your issue that you're having here, and we can report it to the devs. I know there's been a couple complaints about the perspective on exports based on height. And, you know, if we get more feedback and screenshots and maps and stuff, maybe we can come to a middle ground or find some way to make it more comparable for what you're looking for. But the more data we have, the better. So sharing it here, I can help a little bit, and I can take your feedback and write it down in a note. But if you're in the Discord and have a thread, you know, other people can comment on it. You can share your maps, share your images, and I can forward that to the devs and they can take a look at it directly. You know what I mean? Jacob, you use Dungeon Alchemist for local tabletop play? That's so cool. And are you using a TV tabletop? I do think transparency would fix it. They're probably a one-for-one overlay if you put the images together. It just happens because you're up higher, the camera sees a little bit more border. Hey, Lauren Zader, how you doing? Welcome back. Yeah, as of right now, I mean, what I recommend for Foundry Order of Mystery is when you export our multi-level maps, right? It comes with every layer of that multi-level map. So each level is a new image or video for Foundry. And then you take those levels and you set them up as separate scenes, i.e., when you are on floor 1, it's floor 1, scene 1. When you're on floor 2 or the basement, you load into the new scene. As of right now, that works perfectly for the current exports. In the future, when we offer transparent exports for our maps, it would be optimal to use, you know, foreground layering, like is a stock feature, in Foundry or Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, where you have the roof as the top layer and the map underground, like inside or outside, is the bottom layer, the background layer. So it kind of peels back the roofing when your players go into it. Or alternatively, you could use like modules like levels that supports multiple levels of a map in a single scene. So you have, you know, background, layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then roof, all in one map. But for right now, in order to use levels, you have to go through and edit out everything around the roof and make it transparent manually. So it takes some time, and, you know, people want to save time, not spend more time editing things. So I think it's a catch-22 at the moment, unless you use it as intended, which we say is one map per scene. You know, floors module, that's interesting, Gustavo. Is the floors module used to help teleport your players when they go to like a stair to a new level, or is it something else? Atlam, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that. Did one of the devs confirm that, or is that just something you've tested and discovered in your own kind of... Yeah, right now I noticed that tokens, we've heard some complaints that tokens don't, like don't fit in like spiral stairs. And I think a lot of assets were adjusted to fit with the multi-level, but the tokens were an oversight we forgot about. So if you want them to fit, just shrink them down by like 5-10% when you drop a token in a map, and you're good to go. I need to start putting like trees or statues in these. I need to do something with it. I love this though. This is getting... I would love to see it, Gustavo. In fact, any of you, if you're making cool maps or doing cool things at home, if you're using a TV tabletop or a projector tabletop, if you're printing maps or setting up cool, you know, encounters for your players on virtual tabletops, I would love to see that kind of stuff. So it's more like playing tricks on their mind. It's like an optical illusion. Is that what you're saying? If you overlay those rooms on each other as separate layers, they're all the same size? I've used them a little bit. Yeah, they're pretty. The Wisteria are very, very pretty, for sure. I'm glad you like them, Highland Lass. I absolutely adored your stable map from the Dam Challenge. Yeah, so Nemka, what we advise if you're doing stuff like right now and you want the transparency, essentially you export the map, file save, export the map, you know, save it, your master map, and then you can edit out, you know, with a lasso tool or something, everything around, you know, the roofing to be transparent. And so you just have the background layer as the floor layer, right? The one that's like this area. And then everything above that is cut out transparency around it, around roofing and buildings and trees and stuff, the like canopy, essentially. That is a lot of work by hand, though, in like a photo editing tool. Some people will take these large customizable panes, and you could stretch them to the size of the map, right? And then raise it up to your roof level or your canopy level, and just have this go across the entire map, and then export that. Alternatively, if you do a file save as of your master map and branch it off as a new map, and then go into the terrain biome, you can change it from your current biome to the green screen biome. So all the buildings will remain, but all the environment terrain will disappear and turn into green screen. And that allows you to export it again. Just you go up to your roofing layer, go to the top, and then go to File, Export, and then you just export current layer, right? Which if you export it, you're at the top layer, it'll be the roofing layer showing only that top canopy, and then everything else is green outside of the roofing. You then take that export, put it in Photoshop or GIMP or any photo editor and do a color removal for green. You're done in a couple of clicks. Goodness, I think I froze it opening the export menu. Clip Studio, okay, good to know. I use, what do I use? I use Wondershare Filmora. It has WebM with alpha channel editing, and I use that for tile creation or animated maps where there's transparent areas. Works great. That's right, Nemka. You were saying that earlier. You know how to do it. But yeah, for now, it's a bit of a struggle for some of our community. And for others, it's like a couple of clicks. At least we have the tools available to make it possible. You know what I mean? That being said, I do think our next update will include transparency on all layers above the first level. I'm not 100% certain, though. Like, it's something actively being developed. So we'll see. I'll like to see if they can confirm that, because it would be nice to just at least hear it from the, the horse's mouth as to if that is what it's doing or that's the intention. I'll ask them when they get back. Ooh, that's too tight. The green screen is kind of a multi-purpose tool, so it was designed for you to take like a building you like and put it in any environment. Maybe you have like an airship and you want to move it to the clouds or space or over a big portion of land. You can essentially superimpose any background into a living map through stuff like OBS or Streamlabs, or you can take it into a photo and video editor and superimpose or edit out that stuff. So you can do live superimposing through like streaming to change the environment in real time. It's very versatile. I think that's part of the reason they went green screen first instead of transparent. Could be wrong though. Probably gonna need to move these over just a little bit to recenter this. So the update's been out almost a month now. I'd love to hear what's everyone's kind of thoughts on the new update now that you've played with it for a few weeks. What are you enjoying? What are your dislikes? Have you had a good amount of time to use it? What is your favorite part of the update? I'd love to hear it. Love it.